Well, I'm really excited in this conversation because, I got to know you guys years ago. And I think one thing that kind of blew my mind a little bit when we reconnected last year was how far you guys had grown. Like, as far as the way you talked, the way you thought of yourselves as a company. And I thought it was a good opportunity to kick off 2025 with a conversation that will talk a little bit about your past, where you were, and where you're headed. So it's really it's aptly named "Who is Sales Evolve?" But we'll get the two perspectives from the two of you. Let's start off with something simple. Let's start off with the two of you. And Mark, I'll throw this one to you to start. How do you see, like, obviously you're co-founders with one another, but how do you see your individual strengths complementing each other as co-founders running Sales Evolve?
Hmm. Good question. So Justin and I have been working together a long time, and I guess it's that history that has allowed us to learn each other's strengths and areas that maybe not are not our favorites. But but over the years we've had to work hard at that. It's something we do with our clients as well, trying to help leaders come together and figure out a way to have a single voice towards a common goal. And not always does everyone agree that the approach is the right one. And so you go back and forth, you kind of explore that. And I'm very grateful that Jess and I made a decision a long time ago to put our friendship and our working relationship as a constant, steady piece that we keep an eye on as a priority to what we do in a day in and day out. And because of I guess a deep respect for one another, we've kept true to that. And so if there's areas where we're feeling like things are off by a little bit, those tend to be days we just say, you know what, something has gone sideways on us, and we need to just set some time aside to actually focus on what that might look like, because it's extremely rare for us to be so far off that we're not hearing each other or not understanding what the next steps are. So Justin's a way to see things is so different than mine, and yet at the same time, we almost always end up at the same spot. So how I get there and how he gets there are quite different in a lot of ways. But it always amazes me that we end up very similar spots by the time we complete our process of getting there. So yeah, Justin's ability to see details and processes and to see how all the pieces fit and to make sure that the individual people that add up to the whole are all put together is just something that has amazed me over the years.
Well, you actually kind of like led nicely into kind of a question. So, Justin, I want to kind of get your approach on it. Like Mark was talking about kind of the way that it sounds like you complement him as far as being one of the co-founders. What are kind of the unique perspectives or skills that Mark brings into the business?
Well, there's lots, obviously. Like Mark and I, we think quite differently, and but yeah, we as he said, we always end up at the same place. When you're working with people, you got to really pay attention to the strengths and the unique giftings of each person. And I think what Mark and I do really well is that we honor those. So we've done a really good job at establishing our roles, recognizing that we have different strengths, and then establishing roles for each other within the organization. And as a result of doing that sort of thing, what we're able to do is we give each other autonomy over those areas, right? So if it's a matter of finance, Mark defers to me because that's my area. If it's a matter of where we're heading on the consulting direction, that's where I will defer to Mark. And there's so many different strengths and so on, so many little subtle things that each person has. You really have to pay attention to that. And just like every other relationship, you have to work at it. And that's the one thing that Mark and I think, have really positioned ourselves towards is just, honoring the person and making sure that those individual strengths do come through and recognizing our own weaknesses. And sometimes it's harder on some days than others. And, I've had the privilege of with a couple of customers who were thinking about absorbing a new partner into the business, And one of the things they asked was, well, what should I look for in a partner? I said, well, ideally what you look for, just like I use like a marriage thing, it's you're looking for someone to complement you where you're weak, where you want them to be strong where you're weak, and where you have a mutual respect for each other. So without getting into all the details, I mean, Mark does a million things right. So, but the reality is that he's got giftings that I don't, and vice versa, and we just really honor that relationship.
So, like, obviously, founding a company on your own is enough of an adventure on itself. But was there a certain inflection point that you felt like, wow, we're heading towards the right direction, like we're making some right choices? Because when I first got to know you guys, you were more almost like a managed service provider for like external sales, and I used you as a client. But was there a certain point where you kind of said, well, is this the right direction or is it not? And if not, what did we do? Like, what do we do that kind of corrects course? So, Justin, I'll start with you, and then Mark will come over to you for your thoughts as well.
Yeah, sure. When we started SalesEvolve, we thought, okay, so how are we going to start this company outright? And so I remember Mark and we bought The Art of Start, that book, and we spent a lot of time figuring out who we are and what it is that we want and what we want to do. And so I would say that with regard to the objective of the business, that hasn't changed. Our objective has always been to help good companies grow and help their organization be a good one for the employees that are there. But again, it's about growing the revenue, right? And there's reasons why we have that desire to do that sort of thing, to start the business. I mean, there were periods of time that pulled together that said, hey, listen, Justin and Mark, maybe it's time for us to put together everything that we've learned to start this business at SalesEvolve. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I would say that's where we kind of started it all, and it's continued on their path. So while we have done managed services, that was all within in terms of like finding new sales opportunities and so on. Mm-hmm. That was part of the initial objective of the company in terms of helping businesses grow, and it remains to be that way. But what we've done as a company is we've adapted to the demand and the needs of the marketplace. And as such, we've put more emphasis on our consulting side and our holistic view in terms of how we help customers, and on the training side. And we use the managed services side where we go and find new business and find out what the market's asking for and that sort of stuff. That becomes more complementary to those services because that's what the industry is looking for. And quite frankly, that's what Mark and I are good at.
Yeah, everything Justin said. One of the things that has happened over time is that we have, as each connection we have with a client, we learn more about the unique challenges that individual leaders have amongst the company. So, it's actually, and anyone that's been leading a company for a period of time knows that it's quite a lonely role to have within an organization. There's a lot of expectation that they have all the answers, that they are providing direction and have clarity for everyone else, and they're kind of holding it together. And it's very common for them to feel like they can't actually reveal that they don't have all the answers, because it would upset their customers or their employees. And so as we've done various work projects for each client, we've uncovered that one of the things that they've really appreciated about in terms of connecting with us is our ability to just sit with them where they're at, for them to process out loud some of the things that they might be looking to explore, but not entirely sure how to go about doing it. And they really don't want to do it wrong. They don't want to hurt anybody. So while everything in their being is to say, yes, I have to go and make money because that's what businesses do, the clients that we've had the joy working with over the years that have stuck around and we've connected with for the longest have all also had a heart for their employees and for the people, their customers, and the difference that what they do makes in the world. And that's probably our sweet spot. It's helping people that really want to make a difference. And it's not just about revenue. Of course, that's obviously something they can't do without. But they have a personal mission to try to make the world a better place in some capacity, whatever that looks like, and it can be different for everybody, and all of it contributes to moving things forward. But yeah, the ones that are really looking to have an impact like that, they tend to be the ones that really dig in and say, okay, let's do this better.
You talked, Mark, there just a second ago about the idea of, it being a lonely situation to run a company sometimes, and sometimes you have to sit with the fact that if you need help yourself, it's kind of a hard thing to get. So I'm going to throw something back at you there for a second, then, if I may. And it's as if you could actually go back to that first day when you and Justin officially had your business license and were so excited about starting SalesEvolve. What advice would you give to your past self from that first day?
Yeah, hire SalesEvolve.
There you go. There you go.
You know what? The truth is that an awful lot of what Jess and I have been building over the last 12 years, 13 years now, has been actually kind of come out of the experience that we've had either running other companies or running our own, which is that there's a gap. There's an awful lot of need out there that just isn't available to companies. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of snippets. That's a funny word. Snippets out there that actually people can use to say, oh yeah, this is the best way to run a company. If you just did this, you'll magically get it better. But it's not like that. It's a whole bunch of hard work done in the right order with a collection of the right people helping you get to that end goal. And as soon as you try to do a fast version that skips it, all you're doing is you're just creating for yourself a problem that's going to get you later. So having the vision is absolutely critical. Having the passion, of course, you need to have it. Having the right people is all there. But you have to really say, okay, this is part of a journey. And some people will have the luxury of it all lining up just right. The market is massive. The need is phenomenal. And then those are the ones you hear in the news. They're the ones that, hey, these guys just secured all this wonderful funding, and we're super excited for them. I really am. I have nothing but respect for them. I'm glad for them. But most companies, that's not how it is. Most companies, they have to get up every day and they say, okay, how do I make it through today? How do I make it through this month? And how do I grow the company just a little bit this year in a realistic and sustainable way while still getting to have a work-life balance, right? So family is super important. And employees aren't looking to be treated like they're just machines. It's important that they have an opportunity to feed into that, and they have just as much interest and passion and who they are of trying to contribute to something that's meaningful. And if companies will embrace that, they actually have the greatest resource in the world at their fingertips who want to actually make the company successful if they know how to do it. And so a lot of the work we do is helping to align all those various components within the organization, within the compensation structures, within the way that the alignments are within the company, within the way the staff understand their roles, how they fit into the bigger picture. It's all those things done well that then starts to generate the reoccurring revenue that they can count on, and in an environment that they look forward to.
Justin, Mark talked a little bit about kind of like market gap and things of that sort, and identifying those kind of like key players and things of that sort. Obviously, SalesEvolve seems to have not only like a type of business where like a certain type of leader or interest in their team or whatever the case may be, but there also seems to be specific industries or business types that you seem to almost gravitate towards. Can you give me a bit of a background on how those came to be and what made you gravitate towards those certain verticals?
Yeah, it's funny. It's I've received this question a fair bit, and I think what's interesting to me is that it's almost a very similar answer to what you would give for like a branding type of question. Is that where your business follows tends to follow your own expertise and your own passions as a company. So Mark and I started, SalesEvolve. We have a mutual background in manufacturing and technology. And, we really love those areas. So there's a reason why we worked in those spaces before we started the company. And there's a reason why we tend to attract a lot of companies to our own business that way as well. We love it. I just don't know how else to put it. It's cool watching businesses build things and create things. And it's cool working with businesses that support companies that build things and create things. And it's a passion of ours just to make sure that those businesses thrive and succeed. So I don't know. I look at it that way, and I just think we attract it, and then but there's also other reasons too. I think we attract it because there's a definite need in those industries as well. So when you take a look at like manufacturing, for a long time, the businesses are starting to come up to speed now, but when you take a look at manufacturing businesses, so the traditional ones, not high tech or anything like that, for the long time, those types of businesses have been around for very, 100 years, 75 years. We've had customers that have been around for that long easily. And what happens with those companies is you get people that have worked at these amazing companies for 20 or 30 years, but they haven't had a lot of new lifeblood injected into the company, and they haven't caught up because our world changes so quickly. They haven't caught up to the times. So not only do we love those industries, but we can provide them with a ton of value because we can help them accelerate into the space of doing business in the modern era.
So I'm going to throw a term at the two of you. And Mark, I'll start with you, and then Justin will come across. But what, Mark, does holistic revenue growth mean to you? And why do you think it's kind of like an important component of what SalesEvolve is today?
One of the challenges that companies have is they often try to think of what's happening inside their business as isolated pockets. When you start things as an entrepreneur, you have no choice but to do everything. So you have a single person or sometimes a couple of people that quickly uncover that they have to wear every hat within the organization. And if they don't wear those hats, then whatever part they didn't wear, that's the part that breaks. And so inevitably, you end up with that being the spot they get stuck, right? So then that usually becomes the first person or the first place where they hire somebody. You know what? I can't do IT, so I'm going to hire somebody to do IT part-time. And then things carry on, they grow a little bit more, and then they have the new spot. Oh, I can't do HR by myself. I need to have HR. But as you continue to develop all these areas, you start to think of them as isolated pockets of information or individual skill sets that you keep separate from all of the other ones. And they forget that essentially it's a holistic approach to solving a customer's problem that you started with in the first place. So when you dreamed all this up, the idea that we could really help a company, that person that was putting that together had all of the components in their head as maybe not realizing that they had separate departments in their head, but they knew that people were mattered. They knew they had to go tell somebody that they had a product offer. They knew that they had to do sales. They knew they had, but as companies grow, these independent subparts of the business start to become bigger and become their own life, almost have its own character or personalities within the organization. And often those personalities are like, yeah, but I don't do that other thing, right? And so one of the things we've learned over the years is quite by accident, companies start to think of sales as the sales department's responsibility. And if you look at what happens, and when people think about it, they understand it. But a client is not buying something from a salesperson; they're buying something from a company. The company then fulfills the order. Well, the salesperson might be the person that first said, yes, we can help you. But after that, it goes through a whole lot of internal systems, and a lot of people touch it to actually make that happen. If any one of those parts are out of alignment, you end up with problems, right? Customers start to become confused why it doesn't match with the salesperson sold. Order operations are confused because they didn't know it was coming and it didn't look the way that they thought. I don't have enough materials to fulfill the orders because there was no CRM system or any kind of ERP systems or any kind of systems for communicating that things are coming, whatever they are, to make it so that they can prepare for it. The finance team doesn't see themselves as part of the customer experience because they're just doing numbers. And so with all these pieces feeling disconnected, it's actually the customer's journey that ties it all together. And that's the part that we are focused on when we talk about a holistic approach. is to look at it from the perspective of a buyer's journey as opposed to all of our subcomponents.
When a lot of businesses, like especially the mature companies out of startup mode, been around for a while, when they think of growing sales, they think of I gotta, increase expectations and quotas on the sales people, maybe hire a salesperson or do something along those lines, right? But what tends to be maybe forgotten or overlooked is that you can increase your sales revenues without touching the sales department at all. And that's
Okay.
the really interesting part, right? Because it's, as Mark mentioned, it's the customer journey that really matters. And a really good customer journey builds consumer confidence in whatever it is that you're selling or whatever it is that you're putting out to the market. So if you can improve areas within your company that have to do with the customer's experience with your company, that alone by naturally will create engaged sales. So that's why when we speak of holistic selling, it's more than just, training the sales team as to how to close. I mean, sure, that's important, but it's about how do we work collectively as an entire group to deliver the best customer experience so that it naturally produces sales as a byproduct of doing things well. And that's where we spend a lot of our time.
And would you say that it is that kind of like mindset or approach? Is that like one of the key aspects of what clients of SalesEvolve really say that they appreciate about working with you?
Yes, absolutely. So when you go and they've told us anyway that when they've talked to other people that work in the same realm as to what we do, it's very focused on sales training or marketing or when you're in this situation, do that sort of thing. But the ones that our customers by nature are people that are really open to coaching and understanding, and they want to do things different because they recognize the existing system and how people are trained isn't what it's all cracked up to be. There's merit to it, but it's not all cracked up to be. So for instance, like if you want to grow more sales, put higher quotas on people and and do a lot more marketing as a result, right? That's an important element of it, but again, it's not necessarily going to increase it. When we look at the company as a whole and working as, customers buy from the company. Yes, they buy from the salesperson, but what they're really doing is they're evaluating the company that they're purchasing from and the products or the services and looking at that as a whole. So therefore, the company itself is the salesperson. And if that's the case, then that's what we need to clean up and help businesses with. So yes, to answer your question, they absolutely see that as a differentiator. But one CEO told me, he said that one of the things that attracted him to work with SalesEvolve is our focus on putting people into roles that align with the strengths that they have. Right. And that's such a critical element. People are so important to every business, as everybody knows. But sometimes the role that people are put in takes precedence over the people's natural gifting and strengths, right? And sometimes you can make adjustments or put people in slightly different roles where they actually excel and get to the true potential of what they bring to the table. And that was one of the reasons that he said, I got to work with you guys because you recognize that.
And Mark, I want to kind of continue going along this theme because it was this unique approach, this unique kind of like continuum look that you have, this pattern that you see within companies. And I want to talk a little bit about the model and how people can kind of like almost like come in at any point within this model, but they ultimately iterate through this cycle over and over. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Those that get to know SalesEvolve, one of the things we work with from a consulting, coaching, mentoring kind of side of things is we have a framework that we've built over the years, which is to help facilitate a holistic view of generating revenue, increasing cash flow, and making it so that it's sustainable. And that framework is something that touches any part of the organization, but we've very intentionally taken out all of the department names. So what happens is, when we get talking with clients, we'll say the word marketing, and they'll say, got it. And that's
Right.
a really interesting statement. What did you just get? Because all I said was the word marketing. And if you imagine then every single person that hears the word marketing comes to that word with their own set of expectations of what marketing is. So we very intentionally remove that out of the equation, not because they're wrong. It is the section of the business that typically is responsible for it. But what we start to do is instead say, well, what is marketing about? What's its goal? Right.
Mhm.
And once you go back to that, then what we start doing is working on the right parts of the business. So our framework is designed to collectively help our both our consultants and our mentoring staff, coaches, but our clients as well, is to understand where they are in the function of supporting a client through their buying cycle, and to help identify the areas that are going to have the most impact in the shortest period of time versus those that will have a longer impact and might take a little longer to do, but would have a substantial impact on the business as a whole. And so the framework is
Okay.
designed to allow us to focus on both, so that you're not talking about such pie in the sky stuff that no one can understand it. And if you were to take a book and read it, these guys did it here at one of the biggest companies in the world, and they have billions of dollars. And if you just do this, you'll be that way too. Everyone knows that starts a business. That's not how it works. Of course, I want that. It'd be nice if I had billions of dollars just flowing down, and I've just, and good for you if you've managed to get it. But for most
Yeah.
of us, what we have to do is actually do little small tweaks, again, to generate the reoccurring revenue that we're looking for in a way that's sustainable, and within the realistic boundaries of the resources I have available to me. Right. So coming up with a $500,000 order solution for a $30,000 budget is no solution at all. And so one of the things that SalesEvolve does is we very specifically tailor any recommendations, any support we give within the context of the budget that the client can afford to actually help move the business forward. And we do it at a pace that is consistent with their ability to absorb the impact of the changes being made. So again, coming up with the best idea, rolling it out, and nobody understands it and nobody can absorb it or know what to do with it won't work at all. So everything we do is very carefully done to help support the client, so they actually get the results of the recommendations that they're collectively working with us on solving.
When we are doing what Mark was saying, it's you have to understand where this comes from, and it's not coming from a popular book or anything along those lines or whatever's popular on social media in terms of how to grow your company. We tailor everything we do to the business that we're serving. And the best part is that with our group, because we've been so fortunate to help so many different types of clients, we get to learn from them and the mistakes and the things that they've done right. And then we can recognize some patterns and look at that and just say, okay, so well, this company was able to do this, and as a result, that looks like it could be a good fit for whatever business it is that we're talking to. It's all about the customer for us. It's not, while we have a model to follow, that's what keeps us on track. That's what keeps Mark and I being able to communicate clearly to the client what it is, and put a visual behind it, is what we're trying to communicate. But what we want to emphasize is that the process doesn't govern the work that we do. It's the intelligence that we gather from the customer and the common sense behind where to actually work on it. And then we apply the process to that, right? And customize whatever it is that we do for them.
Would you say there's a certain size of business that your model can apply itself best to, or does the model just kind of adapt as you go from, a small to a mid-size to a potentially even an enterprise style company?
When you develop a model, one of the things that you want it to do is to be as universally applicable as possible. So when you do that, if your model's too weedy, it's too technical, it's too in the weeds, that'll exclude certain customers. But there are some fundamental truths that happen in every business in terms of how they go about making decisions to buy, how they run their company, how they support their clients, that sort of thing. So our model is applicable universally to businesses, in terms of, where we focus and how we help our customers. But again, like I was saying before, that's great. So now we've got this picture as to how the business works and how things intersect and how they interoperate within the company. But now what we have to do is start applying more technical things so we work our way down into the problem and solve it with our customers, not for our customers, with our customers.
We've talked a lot about how you add value to clientele so far, which makes sense. But I would love to hear from both of you on, one lesson that you can look back over the years and something that you learned from a client that changed the way that either you think or how SalesEvolve, like your area of SalesEvolve operates. So, Mark, I'll maybe toss that one to you to start.
There's an awful lot that we learn. Probably one of the biggest pieces that we've learned over time is not every customer should be your customer. So as you build an identity for yourself as a company, it's really critical that you are okay with knowing where your strengths are and the types of customers that are your best fit. It's very tempting when you're an early stage startup or even later is to chase every dollar. And I totally get why, because every dollar is really hard to get. Um, but if you allow yourself to be real about who you are as a company, the things that you really love to do, those things that you love and the things that make you strong attract customers to you. They can just tell when you talk to them that there's something about it that is unique to you. And that alone will drive people to ask more questions because they can see it's not fluff. It's not a marketing message that's been carefully crafted. There's more depth to it than that. And so as we pursue growth at SalesEvolve, one of the things that we're going to continue to do is to refine our focus, right? To get really focused on trying to help the right people. So that's our hope.
This is a tough lesson. I'm smiling because it equally it's like, well, did I learn this completely? Because I keep I keep wanting to
Have I
revert
learned
back
this
to
yet?
it. But one of the things that it comes up over and over and over again, and that I think every business owner struggles with, is trying to rush things when it shouldn't be rushed. So often do we see businesses and ourselves when we try to grow our company saying this is what we ought to do, and we push and we push and we push so hard, and we're not letting it get enough time to breathe. And then what happens is you spend all this time and resources on developing a new product or a new process or way of doing things, and you're not seeing all the challenges that come as a result of that. And then you end up having to step backwards and say, well, I've got to redo that again because it didn't work. Now, hear me. I'm all about iterating your business. I'm all about making sure that you improve things. But sometimes when we look at balance sheets for a business or we think about how fast things ought to go, that's our own interpretation of how a business should be run and how quickly change should happen. But the thing is that there's 1,000 other variables that you have to put into place there. And if you push too hard, too fast, you can end up in the same spot or damaging your business as well. So it's really hard to describe because I don't want it to sound fluffy, but it's absolutely true that if you push too hard, you're going to hurt yourself more than you're going to help yourself. But yet you still have to aim for growth and getting better as a business at the same time. And it's a real balancing act that you have to do.
So let's pivot a little bit to overcoming challenges now that I got. I'm gonna send it back to the clients, guys. Don't worry. But what I would love to hear is a bit more like, let's talk about some of the common misunderstandings or common mistakes that you've seen businesses make when they're trying to scale revenue. And it might start in the sales department, it might start in another area of the business. But Justin, I'd like to start with you just on kind of mistakes that you've seen over the. Oh, is this going to be a laundry list?
No, it's not a laundry list. And when it comes to answering questions like this, I don't want it to ever seem like I'm bad mouthing anybody,
Oh, of
because
course,
we
no, no.
all have lessons to learn and so on. But again, I would say, like, one of the things, the mistake is the expectation of results. So it's very
Okay.
common for businesses to reach out and say, "Hey, listen, I need to hire someone to help me find new leads, or I need to hire someone to help me um, bring this new product to market," something along those lines. And then the expectation is, well, there's some sort of magic bullet, there's some sort of magic sauce or something that allows you to do this in a much faster way if you hire outside than if you would inside, and just work internally. Sometimes there's no magic to it. Sometimes it's just experience and wisdom that you've learned and patience as things occur and grow. So, if you're going to hire a lead gen firm because you need, 400 leads a month, and this is your first time that you ever have gone out and tried to prospect or search for leads in that way, that's a pretty tough order to to expect to produce fruit that fast. I mean, if it was that easy, I mean, they theoretically could do
Everyone
it
would do it, right?
themselves, right? Yeah. But yet we think, as a business, and ourselves included, when you hire an outside source, sometimes you think it's going to happen faster than it is. But there's a lot of stuff that has to be thought through and put together, and processes put together, and traction has to be earned within market spaces. It's not just something that is obtained, it's earned, and it takes time to achieve. So that to me is like one of the biggest things. It's like, and it produces just so much stress and friction in a company to expect things to happen faster than they need to, or than they can, rather. And it's not the flashy sellable thing when an organization, maybe like if SalesEvolve says, well, it might take you a little bit longer than you hope, and
Yeah,
someone
right.
else is giving you like random guarantees. That's not the thing that you really want to hear when your business is in trouble or you want to grow it. But the reality is that you're actually throwing good money after bad if you're going after empty promises.
Mm.
And I'm speaking to myself as much as I would be to any other business. It's a constant temptation, because people running companies are usually pretty aggressive people. They have objectives. They have things that they want to hit. We got to slow down a little bit and temper our expectations to what's realistic.
So, Mark, on that vein of thought, and kind of connecting back to the whole idea of that continuum again, how do you help clients kind of like overcome probably a combination of internal and external kind of resistance to changing their business when you first engage them?
People are a funny bunch. Um, we
To say
come
it
we come
mildly.
to we come to every conversation, every employer, every meeting with a lifetime of our own experiences, and the simplest thing um, can can be different. So Justin has heard me talk about this, and I talk to clients about it. But if you think about it, you come to everything with a bit of a picture in your head about how you expect it to look, and that picture that's in your head is in your head. So if I say, I went to the cottage last weekend, as soon as I say that, everybody that's gone to a cottage will put in their brains a version of their experience that matches closer to that version of their own experience. So was it in the woods? Was it on the lake? Was it raining? Was it sunny? Right? We naturally fill in the spaces around our statements and our pictures in our head. And that then influences, as you can imagine, the person on the other end who has a completely different picture, and they're saying, "Would you like to join me in going to the cottage?" And then when you get there, if those pictures don't match, one of them isn't going to be happy because they didn't match the pictures. There's no
Mm.
difference in business, and the reason why this is a universal thing in businesses is because it's based off the psychology of how human brains work. We naturally cannot it's not possible for us to ask every person every single question of what did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? What did you mean? That would drive you crazy. But and so we fill that in. That's just the way we are. But when you're doing some critical decision-making strategy or assigning tasks to employees, one of the things that's really, really critical is that those pictures align as closely as possible. So take a moment to make sure that they can give back to you the same version that you gave to them, and it sounds the same, right? And to look for some clarity in those components. If you can get those pictures to align, you are off to the races in terms of trying to accomplish the goal that you have in mind. But it's the number one thing that gets in the way for almost every human being is when those pictures don't align. And you can go, anyone can go through any of their past experiences where conflict arose, right? Hurt feelings showed up. It's almost always because there was a picture that didn't match. You want to go to your mom's this weekend? Yes, I want to go to my mom's. So now the weekend shows up and it's like, okay, we're ready to go. And you're like, what are you talking about? We're like, we're going tomorrow, right? No, you said we're going for the whole weekend. No, anyways, you end up in this funny business where you thought you had the same conversation, but you didn't. And so as businesses go to explore new ideas and new opportunities and even trying to address, issues within the organization, the first step is to really make sure you understand where you are, that you can collectively understand that, and then the suggestions about how to take next steps, that those make sense for people as well.
Honestly, it's through Mark and I make it a point of saying no fluffy conversation. So no fluff, no BS. Like, let's just be real and honest with each other. And to Mark's point that, you have this picture in your head, everybody has them. And when typically this happens when clients come to us rather than we go to them, but when clients come to us, they have that picture. Imagine an Etch-a-Sketch, right? There's this picture in their head, and that's the prescription. Often the picture is a prescription of that they've developed for themselves as to how they're going to get there amongst all the challenges and so on that go in within the business and the vision that they have for the corporation and all that kind of stuff. Really what we need to do, and this is kind of a visual description, but if our brain is an Etch-a-Sketch, we got to shake it a little bit to try and get rid of that picture, try to wipe it clean, you know what I mean? Without losing sight of the vision and the challenges that exist within the company. And then if we do that, as best as we can, it'll never be perfect, but as best as we can, if we can get rid of this prescription, this prescribed set of processes and things we have to accomplish and actually look at it differently, that's when people's suddenly magic happens, because we can talk about things honestly without emotional attachment or not as much emotional attachment. We can talk about things about what are happening pragmatically within the company. And then by doing so, we can address the problems and work on it together rather than trying to achieve something that you've already said, this is how I'm going to achieve it. Because sometimes there's better ways, right? There's lots of better ways. Sometimes I'm the type of guy where I'll be like, this is how I'm going to do something. I have a strong vision for how that works. Mark will attest to that. And often it's right, but sometimes I'm wrong and I'm way off, or sometimes there's way better ways of doing things or more efficient ways of doing things. And they got to take me by the shoulders and shake me so my Etch-a-Sketch brain will just wipe right out and I can look at it differently. And so that's what we try to do without trying to minimize. I'm teasing, of course, without trying to minimize what we do with our customers, is we work really hard to get to a mutual space of understanding of a situation without all the context surrounding it, without all the, we have to do it a certain way. And then it really happens beautifully after. It's really musical in a way.
So one thing I've noticed throughout the conversation today is I've heard one thing come up time and time and time again is people. People are at the center of companies. People are an important asset. People are not just those replaceable aspects within a company. So let's talk a little bit about culture. Workplace culture plays a really important part of like a lot of our lives when it goes to motivation to get up in the morning and go to work. So I would love to hear from both of you. And Mark, I'll start with you. Is just what role do some of your own personal values come into the company, and how does that help shape SalesEvolve's corporate feel?
That'd be a good question to ask our employees. I hope they'll say some of the same things that I'm about to.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we definitely try very hard to have it so that our employees feel valued as people, that it's okay to make mistakes. We definitely want people to, try their best, work hard, make sure that family is really important, make that a priority in their lives, and to make sure vacation is vacation so that they have a chance to really take time away and to focus on the things that really matter. And then when they come back to get back at it and to look at new ways to tackle things. And I hope that the team feels valued, that they feel heard, that they are appreciated for who they are, and that they have a bit of a picture of how they can grow within the organization if they want to, and areas that they can work on to get better, and areas that the rest of the team sees their strengths and goes to them when they need to, because they're the experts. Way better than I am or Justin in some of those areas. So our hope is that that's kind of the team that we're building.
Yeah. So your values really matter in terms of how the company is structured as a result. I mean, think about it, right? So if Mark and I started this business and we have similar values, which is one of the reasons why we've been able to continue on for so long together, because we value the same things, then ultimately what's going to happen is that we are going to hire people that also value those things. We're going to pick up on it because that's what's important to us. And then that starts to become part of the culture and the identity of the company. Occasionally, I'm not saying everybody has to be the same, because you want difference in the business. But when it comes to values such as like treating customers with honor and integrity, and no fluffy words, and being straightforward with people, and being I don't know, respectful to your peers and to people, that carries through. And you know what's really interesting too, when you talk about this, is that when you build an organization that way, your customers, when they come in and they're qualifying you as a fit for their business to help them, they are going to pick up on those things. So if you set a strong company identity, that's going to come through when you speak to your potential customers, and you're going to attract customers that value that stuff. And then as a result, you get much stronger relationships with customers. I would say the customers that don't work, or the employees that don't tend to work out well for any organization, let alone our own, are those that aren't quite in line with that vision, if you will. Right? That's where the biggest source of conflict tends to come in within organizations. Conflict is great, quite frankly. It's a thing that helps you grow as a business. But if conflict doesn't have a resolution and both people can't see each other and come on board to the same space, that's when it becomes a problem. So for us at our company, employees are the biggest joy that we have. And the same thing with our own customers. Employees are by far the biggest joy that we have when we're working with our customers. But the challenge happens as you start to really care about people. And as a result, when things go not so well, then it's hard on you as well when those employees have to leave. So it becomes your greatest source of stress in the organization too. And that was something, like talking about an earlier conversation that we had, is, what are one of the lessons that you learned? Mm-hmm. It's just like, I've seen it as an employee before we started this company, and wondering like, why did the boss take it so hard when this person left? And why are they so bitter? Or why are they having these challenges? It's because they care. And a lot of the times it's because they care. When somebody leaves, it's like, it's this breakup, and it didn't go the way that they had expected. And they don't like that. And they wonder if there's something wrong with them or with their company, or, whatever. So the employees are your greatest source of joy and the greatest sources of stress. But if you can always keep your head focused in terms of like the value that they bring, and the value and the morals within your organization, then it can become really clear in terms of like who's a fit and who's not. and how you go about helping customers and so on. I think it's a key and core challenge to actually look into.
If each of you has a certain example of something that you did with a client that you're really kind of proud of, that you look back onto it fondly, or maybe it's one of those times where they were having a very hard time and you were able to help them pivot out of it. So, Justin, we'll start with you. Is there a certain example that you would like to be able to share?
It's really hard because we have uh, so many. I feel like we have a lot of examples of shining things that have happened. I'm not going to give names or anything along those
No,
lines, but
that's
there is a
cool.
particular there is a customer that when I met with them, they're in the lowest trough that they had experienced over 20 years in terms of revenue. And again, they're really struggling and saying, "Hey, how do we get out of this?" And they picked up. We were speaking at a conference one day, and they picked up that we're really focused on putting people in the right roles,
Mm-hmm.
and not only that, looking at sales as a holistic entity, right, within the entire company. And that really resonated with the CEO of this company. And we started out and we're trying to figure out like why do they have this constant hockey stick effect with their revenues? And we really went deep into their books and we found out that really the challenge of it was that they're structured like a startup organization in a way, because while they've been around for 75 years or something like that, maybe not quite that long, but they've been around for a very long time. And people had roles that were so big, including the salespeople. And the salespeople were project managers and they were lead developers and salespeople. And then they followed through on shipping and receiving and client feedback and everything. So what would happen is because their business was cyclical, the salespeople would as soon as the customer backlog is done, they'd all start prospecting and working with customers. And then the sales would go up and up and up. Their pipeline would get fuller, up and up and up. And then they get full because they're managing all of the stuff that's going through production. And then sales would fall off every time. And it took a long time to figure out where that was coming from. And we didn't find it until we actually took a very deep look into how people operate within the company and the roles that they have. And then as a result, is we created a whole new corporate structure and put people in the right roles and then train them into that space and provide a lot of follow-up coaching. And this company now, frequently every time I talk to them, they're like they're so appreciative and they call us friends. And every time, like they're now 3 times the size of where they are now, or where they were when we began with them. They were in a rut then. And they constantly say, it's because of this unique look that SalesEvolve did, and the unique approach that we were able to get out of it and look at things a little bit differently again. They knew they're so wise, this company, and they have such good people and such good intelligence within the company. But even with all of that, you sometimes need an outside source to help guide you and give you the vision and give you that optimism back within your business. I could say the same, so we need that too at SalesEvolve sometimes. So, and that is a huge customer success story for me. It's one I carry very closely, just because I really care about these people and they care about us as a result of doing this good work together. We've bonded. You know what I mean? It's I don't know, brothers in arms, if you will. You look at the military terminology. You fought together, you worked hard together, you suffered together, you've grown together, and now we're in this really positive space again. So I really appreciate it. I wear that myself without being arrogant about it. I wear that as I'm proud of what I've done and what
Nice.
we've done as a company as a result.
I know that technical companies, that are especially engineering or highly technical manufacturing companies, one of the challenges that they have is it is a picture in their head. It's kind of a default that they have collectively, which is only highly technically skilled people can do sales. And so but it's a challenge because they have these people that are not necessarily the relationship driving kind of people. They're a little bit more of the technical, get all the details, specific, respond to RFPs, super detailed on the proposals. I mean, they're gifted at what they do. But sales for companies as a whole, if as they get to know what's going on, they often realize that they only were looking at a subset of what the sales journey is or the customer buying journey is within their organization, and so they get sidetracked by that focus, and it can prevent them from continuing to grow because they have made up their mind that only those types of people can actually have that kind of impact in the market for the sales side of things. But once you learn how it works, you can actually reconfigure those technical people to tackle the fullness of what sales opportunities or doing sales work entails, which right from list building to prospecting to trying to nurture and build opportunities, overcome any you know I guess areas where they're giving some feedback that's like, well, maybe it's not a perfect fit, and you have to try to tackle that, and right through to actually then putting together proposals and helping the customer make the purchase. So, some of the clients that we've worked with has been an awful lot of helping them understand the fullness of what happens within the customer buying journey and helping teach their own teams how to do this work without breaking their spirit. And what I mean by that is a lot of the technical people are a little afraid of making those phone calls, right? They're a little afraid of talking to complete strangers. It doesn't resonate in their brain. That's not what they were there for. And so those companies then get stuck because they're like, well, there's no sales happening and I can only use these people. So now I'm mad at them because they're not doing a good job. And it's like, no, they're doing a great job. What we have to do is actually just reconfigure the way you're doing this so that what you get is the right people who are within that team doing the subcomponents that add up to the total. And then by doing that, they can actually achieve the revenue growth and the sales goals that they were looking to achieve without having to break who they are or to get upset at people. And so generally you'll end up with more success, happier employees, and happier customers. And we have 2 or 3 clients that by teaching them this, they've already started to have significant increases to their overall revenue as just part of the overall strategy that they're working on. But that would have been one of the first things we would have had to work with them on in order to start getting on to some of the next pieces.
What would you say, looking forward the next half decade, what excites you the most out of kind of like where you see SalesEvolve going?
I've learned not to get too granular on that because COVID hits and then potentially tariffs hit or whatever, right? So there's always something to mix up your plans, right? And however, what I'm really excited about, I think, is that as a company, we're putting a lot of investment into training, and what I mean by that, not just any old training program. What we're trying to do is help people understand people within the context of business. So there's going to be a lot of psychology related topical matter worked into sales and training, like holistically. And I really look forward to that because there's so much talk about AI these days. Mm-hmm. And AI by nature is going and looking at the content that already exists out there. And if you ever been to, for Canadian people understand this, if you ever go to a hockey game and then you see the little Timbits, these tiny little kids that are skating and they're playing hockey, and there's like 50 of them on the ice, and they all chase the puck around, but none of them stick to their positions. But there's always like one elsewhere that will pick it up, and they're the ones that can, take it all the way to the goal. I look forward to having a company that will be this individual voice that's doing things differently than where the world is. The world's going to be doing everything one way because that's the trend. We'll use AI is going to reinforce that based on what's out there, at least for the foreseeable, for the short term anyway. And then how do you stand out when everybody is doing the exact same thing? And for us, it's all about, how do we inject that humanity back into the work that we're doing? How do we make sure that people continue to deal with people and grow companies in a way that we're growing with people rather than just with technology only? So to me, that's what excites me the most. I think there's a real opportunity for us there. And I'm looking forward to how that plays out in whatever way it plays out. There's going to be a million different ways.
Yeah, we've had over the last few years, we've been slowly building out our team of experts that have joined SalesEvolve that are highly effective and experienced in their independent areas, whether that be HR, marketing, operations, sales, corporate strategy, corporate culture, and one of the things that I'm really excited about is we've always looked at our work with clients as a journey. So a client can literally start anywhere they want. So if the thing they believe is the most painful thing in the world, if I can't fix this, so my whole company's going to fall apart and then fill in the blank. So my customer service is horrible. Great, we'll start there. My sales is the thing that I think I really need to have more revenue. I have to have more leads. That's what's broken. Or you know what, my management team is struggling, and I don't know why they're struggling, but I think maybe I have to replace them, right? So we'll start there. But whatever it is, what we've been slowly doing is building in the team of people that it doesn't matter what part of that journey you're on, we'll have somebody that can partner with you through that process. And as soon as you're ready and done that one, it almost always opens up what the next one looks like. So I fix customer service, and now all of a sudden I need logistics to be better. I need my operations. I need my forecasting. I need my tools. I need my whatever it is. It's a never-ending thing. And so what happens is instead of a company feeling like, okay, here I go. I now got to go back and I got to find somebody else that understands this, right? Our goal is to invest with clients so that we're with them as long as they would like us. But we always say if we're not adding value, we shouldn't be there anymore. And our jobs and what we've been excited about for all this time has been is to make sure that the value we offer is very high and that it's continuously available for anyone that wants it. And our goal is to be there through every step of the journey at the pace and the amount that they would like. So that's what excites me is finding both the people, the network of people that are going to be talented and skilled and passionate, like Justin and I are, for helping others, and the clients that would most benefit from that kind of commitment. Because I'm telling you, it's an insane amount of commitment we have to our clients to help them do really well. And yeah, they probably don't realize how much we care about them and that how much we're thinking about their well-being and trying to help them be successful.